Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to EA Sports WRC. A couple of weeks ago we got the 2024 season update. Of course, alongside the season update came all of the 2024 season content. We have new cars, liveries, stages and more. And in terms of this kind of playthrough series, I'm going to attempt to get from the junior WRC ranks all the way up to the Rally 1 hybrids in the full WRC class and hopefully get that championship under our belt. So a little bit like our GT Rewind series, which unfortunately a lot of the clips are corrupted for that, so I have had to go back and do it all again. This is definitely more of a passion project for the channel and just something alongside the main content to just keep me entertained and give me a chance to do something a little bit different. So we're going to obviously kickstart things right at the beginning of our career as we try and move up through the ranks. So of course along the way you won't just see the typical WRC categories. I will be tackling the side championships, which can feature anything from more modern machinery and of course some of the retro and historic machines as well. So with all that being said, let's dive into episode 1 of our WRC 24 career mode playthrough. It's time to cue the intro.
So, you want to be the World Rally Champion, eh? It isn't an easy thing to do as a privateer, not by a long chalk. But you've got potential, and my boss, he thinks you might just be the one to take this team to the top. It's not going to be easy, mind. In addition to putting those fancy driving skills to good use, you'll also have to help me with the running of our little outfit. Managerial stuff, budgets and the like. It might sound like a lot, but we really do believe you've got what it takes. And in this sport, you have to work hard to beat the best. So what do you say? Ready to get out into the big leagues, eh?
So here we go, we can actually choose where we start our career, and since I want to climb through the ranks, of course I'm going to choose to start with the FIA Junior WRC category. This is basically a one make, and we do actually have one of the new cars to the 24 season update in there. Of course that is going to be the Evo version of the Fiesta Junior WRC, and that's exactly where we are going to start. Now for this section we just have to make our team logo. Of course along the way as we build up our finances and get more engineers on board, we can also get teammates involved and basically create a full team. So we're just going to go through this section, obviously naming our team, and then go ahead and just make our team logo. Now there's not really much in terms of the customization here, so I'm just going to make it to my personal liking. Of course we're going to go for the white, red and black styled livery, so when we do make our own cars and do have our own team, that is going to be the color theme that we run. But we're going to be a while off of that yet, as of course we do have to climb through the ranks. As you can see, these are our season objectives. We've got to stay inside the budget. We also have a couple of championship positions to get, and of course overall that will build up our relationship with the benefactor as we climb through the season. Of course, the better we do, the better offers we're going to get as we actually go through the ranks. So here we go, we have the Fiesta Rally 3 Evo. This is of course the new Junior WRC car for 2024, and we're actually going to kickstart it with a shakedown in our car for the season. As you can see, we didn't actually get a choice in the livery, so we did get put in the number 55. We can do a custom livery, but I think that kind of drags me out of the experience. I think I want to get more into that once it comes to creating our own team. That will possibly be when we get to around about season 2 of the full WRC category. I think at that point we'll start diving into creating our own liveries and creating our own teams to take through the WRC career mode. Now in terms of the shakedown itself, it's just purely a test, just to get us used to the machine that we are going to be driving for the season. It went quite well overall. It is on a Portugal stage, which is a nice mix of off-road, water splashes, you've got some fast sections, some very tight hairpins. Overall, it's a damn good time, and it does give us a nice new feeling of just how the new Junior WRC car is going to handle. Overall, I do think it's a much better car than what we saw from the 23 season. However, I will admit it does feel quite weighty in comparison. Next up, we have to choose our career difficulty. So we're going to start off the AI with a performance rating of 80. I think that's quite fair for our opening season. We're going to have hardcore damage on. We're just going to leave the restarts as they are. We're not really going to use them. Event scale long, and of course keep the default settings for the benefactor. Next up, we have the calendar for week number 1, and we do actually have one of our targets listed here for that first week. We do have the likes of the motor show, we do have a charity rally, and of course we can rest the team. But the main one we want to focus on is the manufacturer hospitality. That is one of our season objectives early on, so we're going to try and get most of those done and dusted in the early stages of the season. At that point, it's full focus to the Junior WRC. The car that we are given here is the Peugeot 309 GTI. So we are straight into the service area where we are going to start off our first shakedown. We're just going to do the one just to get used to it. We are at Rally Iberia, which for me is definitely one of my weakest rallies. I'm not a huge fan of the tarmac physics in this game, and there's not really been many changes to them. In terms of the car itself, it's going to be a relatively easy way to get used to some of the historic machines in the game. So once again, just like with the Fiesta, this is just purely a shakedown. So I'm just going to kind of take my time, feel how the car is reacting to the road surface. If there's any changes we need to make, of course, we'll implement them as we go through. And straight away, one thing I noticed in our first heavy braking zone after that fast section to begin with was just how spongy the brakes felt. There was a lot of lock in them as well. It just didn't feel quite right. And the way that the body of the car is just rolling around constantly, we definitely need to try and get it a little bit more planted and a little bit more stable. It definitely feels like it's more set up for the gravel than it is a tarmac rally at this point. So a few changes will be implemented. Overall though, the car did kind of behave itself. I didn't have too many complaints apart from the brake pressure, which was definitely quite off. And in terms of the actual way that the car set up, it just felt a little bit too high from the road. So of course we are going to stiffen up that suspension and lower the body height as well. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to drop the ride height of the vehicle just to get it a little bit closer to the ground. Now there's not too many bumps in this stage. It's quite flat overall, so we don't have to worry too much about big jumps getting in the way or anything like that. So definitely reducing that ride height is going to be a key thing, and toughening up that suspension just to make it a little bit more stable. Next up, of course, is going to be the brakes. So the brake bias for me definitely needed dragging back a bit. It was just dipping too much at the front, and we're also going to add a reduce a bit of pressure as we go into stage number 1, and we're in the running order at 115th out of 161. Now in terms of the class, I believe this is the H2 front wheel drive. So of course we're going to have to try and really get out of the stage in a pretty clean manner, but also be as quick as possible through it as well. Now the first couple of minutes of the stage, or around about a minute and a half, is going to be purely what we did on the shakedown, so we don't need to worry too much about this section. We do pretty much know it, and we're also going to be using this part of the stage just to kind of test out if our changes have worked, and straight away they did. The brakes felt much better, the handling felt much more planted, and the car was behaving exactly as I wanted it to. The only place we do seem to be losing a bit of performance is definitely in these slower sections. It does seem like the AI is incredibly quick through there before dropping off in the more straight, faster sections. I'm not exactly sure on what car they're driving at this point, so again, I just want to kind of get through the stage as fast as possible and also as clean as possible. But unfortunately, we did take a early hit on the side there with those rocks. Although we do have hardcore damage on, thankfully we didn't take any proper internal damage on the car. It's just purely bodywork at that point, so I'm not too worried. We really did kind of get away with that one. Of course, AI is definitely giving us a good run for our money, and at this point I do want to try and stretch out a lead as much as possible, but we are pretty much neck and neck as we're in this second sector now. As you can see, it's definitely very tight, very fast and very flowing through here, but again, just with the off tarmac physics, I'm definitely not too confident around here. We do eventually pull out a decent lead as we head into a massive straight section before it starts tightening up into a left 3. So at this point we are way up. We do end up clipping flipping it and getting it on 2 wheels, skimming the barrier there, but once again just taking purely bodywork damage. However, a decent enough lead. At this point we're just going to try and push on and get a very fast time on the board. It doesn't matter if we take bodywork damage, that's not really going to affect us. The main thing we don't want to do is damage the likes of the radiator, engine, etc. Those will massively slow us down on the stages, as well as we are trying not to get any punctures whatsoever. If we do end up with a double puncture, there is the risk of terminal damage, and even a single puncture, I'm probably going to want to just drag it to the line rather quite slowly than actually sit there and wait for 90 seconds as we actually change the tyre. So we're definitely trying to figure out, you know, how we're going to go about tackling this rally. I think my main goal here, as mentioned, is to definitely just get the first stage done as fast and cleanly as possible without taking any serious damage. At that point, we can probably slow it down a bit once we get to the first major service area. So the first 2 stages are going to be quite fast. We're going to be tackling them absolutely flat out. Doesn't matter too much if we take some body damage, it's a lone vehicle anyway, so again we do have to pay a slight amount to that, but overall we're not going to worry too much about the car because we don't own it. And then embarrassment, as we came up to the finish line we ended up just overshooting it and clipping one of the sponsor signs. We do eventually get the car going again. I believe at this point we were upwards of nearly 16 to 17 seconds, and it does cost us a few seconds there as we end up with a split time of 11.6. So 11 seconds up after the first stage, pretty much where we wanted to be, as we stopped by the marshal to have a look at the overall leaderboards. A time of 6 minutes 21.735 on the board. Not too bad at all, as we do lead our class here. Now if we have a look at the board itself, as you can see, we do have a bunch of AI in our class. Now in terms of second place, we're 11 seconds up, and we're actually going to sit overall in P25 in the rally, up against the like of Porsche 911s and Opels, as well as some Lancias. So we're not doing too bad. We are actually beating some of the Lancias and Renault 5s, so not sure how we managed to get there, but we at least did. Onwards to stage 2 then. Now we are going into a night stage here. Our class leader sits with a time of 6 minutes 3 seconds, so that is going to be the target. Of course, because we're on the same day and we are not leading the rally, at least in terms of our running order, we do have an insight into where the class leader is and how they did across the stage. Now of course, when you go into the dark, it is definitely a different ball game entirely. Now once again, my plan is to just stick to my guns as fast and smooth as possible, try not to take any major damage, and then go into the service area to repair anything up, and then start just taking it a bit easier over the final 3 stages. So we're going to be as flat out as possible through this section, quite quick straight out of the bat, very tight and enclosed, and unfortunately we're going to end up just clipping the bank in there, and it sort of drags us in, and we do clip one of the barriers. So very unfortunate there, we're losing a ton of time, but once again getting away with it with no major internal damage. So we're going to continue on. We have lost a fair chunk of time, so we really do now need to make that up as soon as possible. A minute and a half into the stage, and we did start seeing just how bad the bodywork damage is as the door flies open, and unfortunately it's not going to close itself properly for the entire stage. At this point we're 3.5 seconds down. We did manage to kind of drag back some of that time that we lost early on, and as we go into some of the faster sections, we do actually manage to make a decent chunk of time up. The right one here just kind of catching us out. We do run down the actual bank in itself, but we do pretty much get away with that one. So again, we're just trying to absolutely push through the night, try and get ourselves back in the lead, and then build up a decent time. It does seem when we get to these faster sections, we can really pull on the AI, which you can just see by the left hand side there. We're absolutely flying at this point, and overall the AI does drop off. It does seem in the more hairpin sections they can make up a ton of time, but once again they've lost a chunk there on the straights, and unfortunately it's going to be a couple of hairpins next where we are going to start losing some of that time. So through the slower sections we're definitely not as quick as we want to be, we're losing a decent amount of time there, but once again we are going to make it up in those more straight sections. Overall, with just a bit of cosmetic body damage, we are doing pretty well at this point. As you can see, we're only now a second down as we cross into the third sector, so not too bad. We've made a chunk of time, but we were fastest through there as well, so that is definitely, you know, filling me with a decent bit of confidence as we tackle the night. So as you can see, we're coming towards the end of the third stage at this point. We're just over 4 minutes in, and we are starting to pull out that lead now. So again, we're just trying to keep it as fast and clean as possible. And as you can see, we are going to now be 4.5 seconds up on the class leader. So definitely where we want to be. Overall, at this point, we'd be around about 16 seconds up come the end. And unfortunately, it's going to be towards the end of the stage where things start going wrong once again. We've got a decent lead, but we did end up riding up one of the barriers and actually rolling the car. And unfortunately, at this point, as you can see, we have taken radiator damage. However, thankfully, we do have a service area up next, so we did pretty much get away with that one as it came right at the end of the stage. We did lose a bit of extra time there to the class leader, but not to worry too much as we push on to get ourselves up and across that line. More thankful that the car managed to survive that roll. It could have been much worse as we cross the line, and as you can see, we're now 4.5 seconds up in this one single stage. Overall, we're going to be around about 15 to 16 seconds up in the rally at this point. So we're going to head over once again to the leaderboards to see how we are doing, and as you can see, we were 4.5 seconds up on that stage. It's quite relatively close, around about the top 4 cars. As you can see, overall though, we do have a 16-second gap just to P2, so we can relatively take it easier on the 3rd and 4th stage at least. So of course, we're here in the service area at this point. We've got to try and get rid of some of that damage. We do have the likes of the exhaust damage, the radiator. Of course, we did see that that was damaged on the heads up display. We of course have bodywork damage. We've had that since the first stage, unfortunately, and we do actually have a bit of steering damage. I did find that that was starting to cause a few issues towards the latter stages of stage 2, but I think most of that actually got caught when we did that roll. So thankfully, with that being so late into the stage, we could manage to kind of get away with that. And we're also going to get away with a penalty here, with it only taking 25 minutes to fix what we fixed. So thankfully, we didn't incur that 5-second penalty there as we go ahead and start up stage 3 of the rally. Of course, we do have a fairly healthy lead overall, and I can probably take my time in comparison. However, I think this was my own doing as we went out in pretty damp conditions and I didn't actually put a new set of tyres on. Yeah, unfortunately, being so preoccupied getting that damage fixed, I just forgot completely to put a new set of tyres on. Unfortunately, they're going to be pretty shredded at this point in this stage, as well as probably being the entire wrong compound. And again, that is going to show in the balance of the car. The car definitely feeling all over the place. It's unable to get its speed down. It's locking the brakes a lot more. And as you can see straight away, we are pretty much off the track and down the banking. We do get away with that one much better than it could have been. But unfortunately, although the damage is entirely fixed pretty much, we are now at risk of a major accident just due to the tyres themselves. So yeah, we've definitely put ourselves in a predicament here. The car absolutely all over the stage. So as you can see, we are pushing on a little bit later. We're 2.5 minutes in at this point. It's quite a long, beefy stage. I mean, honestly, things are going quite well. I do feel like I settled into how the car's handling, even on this absolutely dreaded rubber that we've got under the car at the minute. But we are actually trying to get into a groove here, and we did manage to find that, so we're not doing too bad at this point. Now, of course, because we were leading the stages after stage 2 and going into a new day, we did actually end up taking the stage first over anyone else, so we don't really know where the running order is at the minute, but it definitely felt like it was going okay until we ended up absolutely clobbering one of the signs, and unfortunately we do take a double puncture. It's going to take 90 seconds per tyre to fix, meaning that we will be down 3 minutes at that point, which we really don't want to do. So at this point, I get the car going again, and I just want to drag it across that finish line, and hopefully the tyres will change by the time we're done. That is the key thing we're trying to do here. As you can see, we do have a spear in the back, but just the one spear, and honestly I'd rather change it at the end of a stage than change it during it and take the penalty. And unfortunately the double puncture is going to be what puts an end to our rally. Although it was plain sailing, both tyres just blew off of the rim, and at that point it was full terminal damage, and unfortunately our Peugeot 309 ends up in a ditch. And there we go, game over, part failure, as the tyres completely blew on us. We did end up with a DNF in P33 in our class, and unfortunately that would bring an end to our rally as we end up dead last. As you can see, P2 did end up going on to take a win in first place, and then the typical running order throughout the rest. So 0 points, the car completely totaled, and unfortunately it's going away on the back of the trailer, an absolute mess. A devastating start to our first rally in the WRC. However, things can improve from here, as you'll see in episode 2, as we go on to tackle our first major championship of the season. That will be in one of the front wheel drive F1600 vehicles, the Citroen C2, as we begin a full championship season in that car. I want to give a big thank you to all of my channel members who continue to support this channel each and every single day, and a massive thank you to you guys watching at home. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day wherever you may be. Join me next time for episode 2 as we end up going from the tarmac to the snow. Anyway, take care guys, peace.